What is a jewelry design center?
JDC is a family-owned business with deep roots in Montana. Why Montana? Because this community made us. Made us family, made us artisans, made us believe in love, made us hometown heroes. Because this community made us shine. Why Montana? Because Montana is home.
Cash One Pawn has the most extensive inventory of any pawn shop in western Montana. Whether you're in the market for firearms, power tools, bows, video game consoles, or sunglasses, Cash One Pawn has the best deals around. And now Cash One Pawn gives you the ability to shop online from anywhere. Make CashOnePawn.com part of your shopping habits. Also make sure to download the Cash One Pawn app. Cash One Pawn, Missoula's premier pawn shop, located on Roller Coaster Road on the way to the Y. As good looking as we are on the Zoom, definitely even better looking in the studio. It is Tuesdays with Tootell, part of the Big Sky Breakdown and the Skyline Sports YouTube network, I guess you could say. A lot of contributors now. Very many of them very handsome men, must I say, including this man, Ryan Tootell. And usually we do this on Zoom, but all of a sudden he lives in Missoula again, so now we can do it in person. So thanks for tuning in. We're coming to you through the ESPN MT studio at the Missoula Broadcasting Company. Appreciate them for their continued employment, collaboration, and partnership as always. Gus, how you doing? Wearing your fanciest shirt. Appreciate it.
I knew we were going to be on camera today, so I said, let me dig out that one polo that I've got buried somewhere. As you said, you saw me 2 days ago. I was wearing this shirt. You see me today, and I'm actually not still wearing it. I am wearing it again.
That's good. Sunday laundry day.
The other options, not that I care, but it's just for the people. This is what everything I do is for you.
This is a question from the Nuanez Now Stratosphere.
Yes.
Would you rather, I'm thinking of this because I'm looking at the bull riding picture right over your shoulder. Would you rather ride a bull?
Whatever option B is, I could just about guarantee it.
The heavyweight champion of the world. Box Mike Tyson in his prime. Houghton picked bull.
Yeah.
Only because, like he said, it's over in 1.4 seconds.
I would ride a bull, too, if those are my options. Now, because here's the thing. If you said you got to get in the ring for 15 seconds with Mike Tyson, I would pick that because I think that I could run in the circle square and dodge for long enough to make it. But if we're talking about a real fight, no, you are going to be unconscious and in pain and suffer. And you're going to get hurt on the bull for sure. But
right.
I've been launched off stuff, landed on the hard ground. It sucks. But,
you live to play another day.
You do. Now, obviously, the risk is much higher ultimately riding the bull. But I think if you're prepared to let go immediately and just shoot out the back,
Did you see the bull that jumped the...
Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That is a good night ruin. You're at the rodeo, you're having a fun time with your family.
You're standing there at the concession stand just trying to get a hot dog.
Here comes the bull. We shouldn't even make fun. Somebody died. It was an awful thing, but man, those bulls are scary, man.
Yeah. Well, thanks for starting us off on that foot, Colter.
As we record this here on August 6th, the Grizz took the practice field for the first time yesterday, Grizz football. Montana State has been practicing for more than a week already because they play a week 0 game.
New Mexico.
At New Mexico.
Yeah.
You got family ties, family roots in New Mexico.
I lived in New Mexico for many years.
I heard that I've been actually purporting false information. I thought August 24th, 2 p.m. kickoff, Albuquerque, New Mexico, that this was going to be hotter than hot. But somebody was saying that Albuquerque's not, it's going to be like Montana hot, right? It'll be probably in the high 80s or low 90s or something like that. It's just not like Phoenix hot, though, where it's 110 degrees.
No. Now,
Albuquerque's high,
It is high, although, Santa Fe,
where you live,
where I used to live, is over 7,000 feet.
And Albuquerque's over a mile high, I believe. Higher than Bozeman even.
Albuquerque is right there with Denver in terms of elevation. So Albuquerque was always hotter than Santa Fe, obviously, because it does drop down too, but it's nothing like actually being in the valley in Phoenix. It's actually interesting. I drove from Arizona into New Mexico, a couple years ago. And you just wouldn't necessarily know it, but I mean, it is, you don't go over a pass. It's just this eternal rise for 100 miles of just gradual but consistent uphill.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, you're just on a shelf. And this is like Oppenheimer was just the guy, right, who's like going to ride his donkey across the wilds of the New Mexican high desert. And the nickname or the whatever the slogan is the land of enchantment in New Mexico. Couldn't agree more. And this isn't. I mean, when I lived there, I was a boy. Okay, I was young. Yes. So returning there though as an adult, it's a whole different world. If you want to travel to another planet, but you need to stay on Earth, go over say 8,000 feet in elevation anywhere in the world. Because it just, all the vegetation, all the feel of it, everything just changes dramatically.
Totally.
And New Mexico is shockingly high in good portions of it. I believe this is true. It was when I was younger that the Santa Fe ski basin is, in fact, the highest elevation in terms of what the top of the ski area is of a public resort in America. It's like 12,000 feet at the top of the Santa Fe ski basin.
Crazy.
So... it's a different kind of place.
Well, it'll be interesting to see Montana State 4.5-point favorites going into an FBS game. That shows you the state of the football program at the University of New Mexico.
Well, what it's been forever. Can you name one New Mexico Lobo football player?
Brian Urlacher.
It's the only one.
It's been 30 years since he was in college. So certainly that's about it. Okay, so when it comes to broad strokes, this is the beginning of sort of a series of the re-education of Ryan Tootell. He certainly worked in sports broadcasting and in media for a long time. He dabbled last year with us here on Skyline Sports, but he's back in the fold now. He lives right over here, so we'll be able to record a lot easier. I know you followed it from abroad, listening to Nuanez Now, the Big Sky Breakdown, all that stuff, watching the games, but just broad strokes. Let's just start with the Grizz. The defending Big Sky Conference champions. They had an enormous year last year, not only because they won 13 games, not only because they went to the national championship game, not only because they claimed the Big Sky title and beat their rival by 30, but also because coming into October, Bobby Hauck was legitimately on the hot seat for the first time in his entire career at Montana.
Yep.
What did he do when the seat was lit on fire? He won 10 games in a row and went all the way to Frisco. So I'm so interested to see how that dynamic influences the season. We talked until we were blue in the face last year about, well, they got to fix the quarterback. They got to figure out a quarterback. This dual quarterback thing's not working. Their quarterbacks suck. What's going on with Montana? This is just a complete dumpster fire. Then they made the quarterback decision, and they don't lose again. So I fully expect, because he's Bobby Hauck, to do that same thing. And if it's going terrible and they're losing a non-conference road game or something, dig in. We're going to do it my way. So I'm so interested to see how that dynamic works. But just broad strokes, what do you think of the Grizz coming into this season? And what should I be watching for down at fall camp these next couple weeks?
Yeah, I mean, it's the easiest thing in the world and the most obvious thing in the world for a reason to talk about Montana and the quarterback situation.
For sure.
And it had, I mean, Dalton Sneed was the most sterling pencilman starter in this era of the Bobby Hauck run Montana Grizzlies, and he started 2 years.
Correct.
That's what you got out of
As
Dalton
a transfer
Sneed.
who had multiple stops before he even arrived in Missoula.
And I mean, granted that's all he had left. It's not like he was ushered out the door or anything. And he was an outstanding quarterback for the football team. And ever since then, every single year coming in, who's going to be quarterback? And every single year it's been one and done. And they've gotten pretty good quarterback play overall out of that. But when you got a guy named Ayat, who the flashes that have been shown have been absolutely outstanding, and obviously the history, the lineage of his namesake and his dad, I think everybody that follows the Montana Grizzlies is sort of penciling him in and has like an expectation that this is the dude that we're going to see. But as you said, the one variant to that is the head coach of the football team who doesn't really do that.
Let me ask you this. Let's say Kealili Ayat's last name was Moyakiola or some other sort of Hawaiian name that isn't Ayat.
Is there one, or did that just come out your mouth?
Moyakiola was not Moyakiola. He was a great linebacker for the Cats.
Good.
I was just thinking of Island. I was like, what Islander name could I think of? I guess I could have gone with Uli Lakepa, who is Montana State's great linebacker
didn't know
now.
if you just strung together a bunch of vowels and just said it.
Not Moyakiola actually taught me how to say Islander names. Because I said,
you taught me. Teach them. How do you do it?
You pronounce every vowel.
Every vowel you say.
Moyakiola.
Yeah.
Kealii Ayat.
There you go.
Yeah, right. But his last name wasn't Ayat. What would we think of this kid?
Well,
because I don't think that I am riding the Ayat hype train because of his father whatsoever.
No.
I think I saw a very functional, gifted, talented young quarterback last year in the times that they played him.
I think here's what I honestly thought when I watched him play. I was like, oh, the only reason he's here is because he is Ayat. Elsewise, he'd have been wherever else he wanted to be.
At least in probably the Mountain West or something, right?
I mean, he looked like that type of talent and instinct. So I'm with you. I don't think the hype train is at all driven.
It's for some people, I think it is.
There's a recognition factor, right? And maybe there's a rooting factor. But I think the hype is because of what people saw in, again, very limited.
Well, there's also this great lineage that's now certainly a part of yesteryear because this has sort of fallen off. But all throughout the 80s and 90s, when Tommy Lee was the offensive coordinator for Montana, they had this wonderful pipeline of Hawaiians. Brian Ayat probably being the best one, but guys like Raul Pacheco, I mean, they had great players from Hawaii, and so much of it's because their offensive coordinator for a long period of time under Don Reed, Tommy Lee's from Hawaii. So I think that there's an affinity not just for the Ayat last name, but because there's a lot of beloved players from the island too.
The thing is, it seems like Coach Hauck wants. Maybe the thing that is sort of most important to him is that the team takes a chemistry and an identity form that he wants it to take, that he has a vision and creates, if I can put it like this, a mental mold, and he's going to pour the team into that, and they have to fit that for him.
Right.
And it's not, and like how well you play is important, obviously, but it's almost secondary to how you fit into this thing. And admittedly, it's a bit opaque to me. I don't know what his vision is or what he sees or how he wants to do it, but he very much feels like the maestro. He's pulling the strings
for sure
of the puppets, and I don't mean that negatively, but he's the one who is going to make this in his image. That said, all else being equal, and if it all fit the way that he wanted it to fit, why would you not want to just know this is my quote-unquote four-year starter at quarterback?
But he's never even done that.
That's what I'm saying.
The last time he had a freshman quarterback, Cole Berquist, he brought in transfers.
Right.
Cole's first 2 years as the starter, even though he had an incumbent.
Yeah.
And Cole faded. Cole was my roommate when this happened. He faded his sophomore year, and Josh Schwager, who was a transfer from Washington State, started and took the Grizz all the way to semis, and then Cole, who had been a starter as a freshman, had to re-win the job then again as a junior. So there is already precedence for this as well. And look what Bobby Hauck did this offseason. There's a stud freshman. What's he do? He brings in a transfer from Fresno State and Logan Fife.
Well, and especially now, where it's just the Wild West in terms of transferring and guys going everywhere, I think you would almost be irresponsible not to do that.
Totally.
So I think that,
like, the Cats did not, and they don't have a backup quarterback to back up Tommy Law. We'll get to them in a minute.
But I think and also to your point, like Bobby Hauck, I mean, if we can say anything that we think we know for sure, positional competition is paramount. Like, you have to earn it every day, and you can't earn it if there's not somebody else competing with you for it. So that's the thing I would say on the ground and the thing I'm most interested in. But also, going back to your original question, sort of questions about Montana, and this is a broader sort of deal. The run that they went on last year to the national championship was so out of the blue.
For sure.
Not just for them, but I mean, I can't think of another team in recent history that you go, how did that team make it to the national championship? That's unbelievable. Like,
there are so many loyal listeners of this podcast and this YouTube that was texting me like, what happened to the Grizz talent? Why don't they have any talent? It wasn't just the quarterback. People were like, we don't have any dudes. What's going on with the Grizz?
Who's playing offensive line? Dudes walking off the field?
Yeah. I mean, there was questions across the board. What happened to Justin Ford? Why don't we have a Patrick O'Connell? All these guys are lame. The Grizz are bad. And then that's the narrative in September. By November, oh my God, Ryder Meyer is going to be a first-team All-League player. Trevor Gradney's the best corner in the country, and it all turned so fast.
Well, it did. So I guess the thing is, though, is Montana has been building. They improved very quickly when Bobby Hauck took over, and then they have improved incrementally over the last couple years. And obviously, they made it to the summit, though didn't win it last season. But because it didn't feel like the next step in the progression, I guess is the point to me. It felt like a magical run.
Sure.
And
as well as the place they should have been all along. Right?
Why?
The progression was way slower than I think most people anticipated.
I mean, if you ask anybody in the program, certainly the guy at the top, this is where we're supposed to be.
Think about the first Saturday in November of 2019. Me and you were sitting there, we're doing college game day before number 4 Weber State is in town. Yeah. And I said, Gus, I got a feeling today they're gonna kill this team. And then they did. They almost killed the quarterback. I mean, Weber State was the walking wounded by the end. Josh Davis gets knocked out. Josh Malone gets knocked out. I mean, everybody on their team was hurting. At that exact moment, you're thinking, well, if the Grizz are good enough to put up 40-something on offense and just completely destroy this team defensively, this team might make a run. Then they had a lot of circumstantial stuff kind of go not their way, right?
Yeah, they had to play in one of the ugliest weather games I have ever seen.
In a rematch against a conference team at their place.
Yep.
The conference team is wanting revenge against you. It's the rainiest, grossest day.
And Dalton Snead throws 5 interceptions or whatever it is in his last game.
The Grizz defense give up like 4 first downs and 100 yards, and they lost still.
And the block punt, which Bobby Hauck took total ownership of.
And then 2021, okay, you go to Bozeman, you get rolled.
But here's my thing. That's the
2022. Excuse me.
That 19 team is a great example. Like after they got better and better and better, and then when they did what they did to Weber State, who we saw and was a nationally elite level program, you go, okay, this is where the Grizzlies are now. This is where they're at. Yeah. And to your point, you got to get a little lucky in a real tournament.
For sure.
Okay,
for sure.
When you got to win multiple games to get there.
You also just can't get wiped by 6 touchdowns against your rival the next week.
Well,
that's what they did.
That's right,
and that impacted everything. That's why they had to go on the road.
Well, what are you really? But that was the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde nature of that team.
Yes,
this team, but. My point is you said, well, this is where we expect them to be, or this is where they're supposed to be. Maybe, but I didn't expect them to be there last year. If anything, it looked like they were going the wrong direction.
For sure.
And so the fact that they went on that run, that's why it was such a surprise, because it wasn't expected.
So you talk about this sort of vision that Bobby Hauck has, and you're right, it is opaque. There's no way we can possibly truly define it for people. I think if we could, it would make this segment much less interesting. But you look at the 2019 team with Dalton Snead at quarterback, Sammy Akim and Samari Toure at receiver, Marcus Knight at running back, all these offensive weapons, Dante Olson, Jace Lewis, all these guys are still on the defensive side of the ball. Then you look at 2021, there's a wreck at running back, but Junior Bergen saves the day for you in a variety of different ways, including roasting Troy Anderson for that touchdown out of the slot. That team gets a bad draw, basically. Straight up point-blank period. The Cats getting the 8 seed was a more advantageous draw because they got to go to Sam Houston. The Grizz get whatever seed they got, I can't remember, but they had to go to James Madison, who was much better than Sam Houston. It's just a bad draw. What I'm getting at, though, is It's my belief that the 2019, 2021, and 2022 Grizzlies, all three, were much more talented than last year's Grizz football team.
See, I would sign off on that.
So
I really
then,
would.
so then, what's the deal? Is this part of the Bobby Hauck plan, though? Is less stars better for you?
No, I mean, I'm not going to do the less stars thing. I don't know the answer, but you said talent.
Sure, right, totally.
Less talent is not better for you.
Sure.
It just isn't.
Sure.
So, but that doesn't mean that you can't come to it. And it's not, by the way, less doesn't mean bad. Really good players, just not Buchanan award-winning level types of guys.
Right.
You know, that sort of, those sorts of, though they do have, I mean, you find me a better offensive weapon in the country than Junior Bergen. I don't
just
think you can do it.
Open field weapon, period, yeah.
So the talent is certainly there. But my bigger point is this. When it comes to expectations coming into this season, no idea. I really don't know what – I expect them to be very good. But when I'm talking about no idea, I'm talking about national championship.
Sure.
Do I think this is a team that can win a national championship? Yes. Do I think it's a team that will win a national championship? Now, let me tell you this. You give me any team in America or the field, I'll take the field.
Right.
But do I expect them to go and win a national championship? I wouldn't say that. But also, and this is sort of the nature of college athletics at this point, because there's so much turnover and the transfers come in and we got a bunch of guys that you don't know who they are or what the names are. You got to see it on the field before you sit here and start sort of anointing people. But are the Montana Grizzlies now in a place where they are, can we say, expected to win the Big Sky Conference? I don't know who you'd like better than them at this moment in time.
I mean Montana State's the other one, but Montana State's got they have a lot of stuff that went awry last year that's beyond just the normal perils of a football season, and they have a lot of questions to answer for sure.
I have a number of things about the Cats in this sort of vein to talk about as well, but
Tuesdays with Tootell, probably presented by Cash One Pawn. Cash One Pawn, your premier pawn shop in Western Montana. Make CashOnePawn.com part of your shopping habits. It's Pawn.com. I just
think that when you don't know who your quarterback's going to be,
yes,
and you're always, and what is happening now in college football across the board, not just in Montana, is what, 40% roster turnover every year?
Right.
No one other than the coaches and even them maybe not wholly know what you got. And I mean, there's always that right now, right? Fall camp for coaches is learning what you have here in a large part. You brought in people that you think you know, you have returners that you do know, and you go, okay, well, how are we going to make this sauce and make it good? And, add the right spices at the right temperature and make this what we want it to be. But it's becoming a much more, I think, difficult and nuanced art to do that on the field, because the ingredients that you're getting are coming from all these disparate places that you had no idea before. I feel like it's the open the basket on the Food Network and see what's inside, and now you got to make me a dessert. Like, good luck. You got beets and you got popcorn. Make me a cake.
Sure.
And so now you got to figure that out. And that's the job, though. I mean, that is what coaching a team is. You got to go do it. But for us as fans, it's not like we got, 13, out of 20 returning starters.
Sure.
And so then, you sit there and you think, okay, overall, the talent's going to be better in Missoula and Bozeman than it's going to be in Greeley.
Sure.
But what about Weber or Idaho or North Dakota State or South Dakota State? Or, and you go all that, and it's like, well, that's why they play the season.
Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any town pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.
Right down the road. Pump it up. Oh, yeah.
Tuesdays with Tootell, Probably presented by Town Pump. Montana's best for more than 6 decades. Town Pump's going to keep us fueled up all season long. We got a big travel itinerary once again. Going to go over to Cheney a couple times. Going to go over to Moscow a couple times. Certainly going to be in Missoula and Bozeman a bunch. Might make it over to Portland at least once. Maybe down to Pocatello once. So appreciate Town Pump for keeping us fueled up all season long. Montana State. I thought Montana State was undeniably the most talented team in the country last year that wasn't named South Dakota State. South Dakota State's one of the most talented teams we've ever seen in the FCS level.
Yeah.
The evidence is that, they put 10 guys on NFL rosters. That's, just point blank period. And
double the Big Sky Conference.
More than double the Big Sky Conference. And they still have multiple NFL guys on the team still that are going to go to the NFL this next year. So they certainly have been stacked these last couple of years. That's how you win 29 games in a row. That's how you're the number one team in the country for 22 weeks and counting in a row. But Montana State proved that just having talent isn't the only thing that you need. Last year,
you need a kicker.
Well, for sure. But I thought, though, it was so ironic because you look at the way that the scope of last season went. The Cats, in week 2, go to South Dakota State, and they take them all the way down the wire. If not for a controversial play at the end, maybe the Cats win. Either way, doesn't matter. You win, you lose, whatever. But you took the number one team in the country. You played them just as close as Iowa did, and it's at their place.
Right.
That's pretty good effort.
Yeah.
That loss, ironically, bumped the reputation of the Cats even more.
Yeah.
Then the Grizz are doing whatever they're doing. They're playing multiple quarterbacks.
Floundering.
They're barely beating Butler. They're going to Utah Tech, and they're running like the old school Big Sky High School offense to try to get out. They beat them by 30, but it was like, oh, let's just run nothing. And Clifton McDowell, quarterback dive, here we go. Not showing anybody anything. And then it all comes to a head. The opening of conference play, NAU's an 0-3 squad. The Grizz go there, they get destroyed. And it's, SOS. The house is on fire. Meanwhile, the Cats go to a ranked Weber State team, and they beat them 40-0 without Tommy Malott. Now the narrative keeps going. Oh my God, the Cats are it's Montana State versus South Dakota State in the national championship, no question.
Yep.
Grizz not even gonna make the playoffs. Well, who rises and who falls then? The Cats just kept on stubbing their toe. They go to Moscow, they lose because they don't, like you said, don't have a kicker. Then they come to Missoula, they get destroyed, and then the kicker and the kicking game in general comes back to bite them. Blocked extra point in overtime against North Dakota State, and all of a sudden here you are. You're looking at this 8-4 season, and you're thinking, what could have been?
Yep.
I wonder if the Cats got unraveled by the amount of hype that they got after that great performance in Brookings earlier in the season.
I don't think so. I think they got unraveled by the Montana Grizzlies.
For sure.
And I think the other stuff, I don't want to say it's luck, but it's luck. Man, when you lose by
there is an element of luck
on an extra point, on that individual play. I said this to you at the time. I think it's coaching.
Sure.
This dude, if you can't get a kicker to elevate an extra point that only has to go 12 yards in the air or whatever, that's not, the kid can do it.
Sure.
Anyway, that's
plus you got a team that, like Marty Morningboy would say, a team that won 9 national championships in the last 10 years, and you got them on the ropes. You got them in overtime. Doesn't matter if you're the home team. Nobody's the favorite against North Dakota State.
No, that's right.
You go for 2. You go for 2 to try to win the game. When you got a team that's favored against you, you go for 2 to win the game.
It's easy to say a team like that when you go like big picture and say this is a team that just about beat the definitive best team in the country in their place in week 2. Ended up 8-4 and losing in the first round in their first playoff game.
Yeah.
You go, that is unraveling. But if you look at what in fact took place,
yes,
that's not how I would characterize it.
No, but you and I were on the roof at Washington Grizzly Stadium, and because the Grizz were up 4 touchdowns, we watched the Bobcat sideline as much as we watched the game.
Yeah.
And it was not a pretty sight.
No, and that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying Montana unraveled Montana State.
For sure, and they've unraveled at Washington Grizzly Stadium multiple times. But they're not alone. That has happened to literally hundreds of opponents over the last 40 years.
The best thing for Montana State in that is that they had a bye week. But I'll say, honestly, one of the best coaching jobs I think that Coach Vigen has done was in the North Dakota State game to bring that team back from, just an embarrassing, devastating loss to your rival, that it's like, how, you want to talk about loss of confidence, loss of chemistry, loss of relationships on the sidelines, and all that stuff, to like be able to take a breath, and Coach Vigen being sort of the big but calm, sort of even-keeled steerer of the ship, to get them back in a position where shoulda, coulda, woulda, but a great game against a great team, and it just didn't happen at the end, and that's the way it goes sometimes.
There's also the part where, like, the seeding and the regionality of the seeding.
Yeah.
The Cats had to play Weber in 2022 in the playoffs, and they had to play North Dakota State last year in the second round. That's dumb.
It's like,
that's just dumb. That's 2 top 9 teams playing
bring somebody
each other.
out of the Colonial and
or
do
just
that.
something,
Anything,
somebody,
else,
yeah.
But here's my larger, again, broad strokes question about.
Okay, so you think the Cats did not unravel, but would you agree, though, because they had such a disappointing season, given the level of expectations before and during the season that they reached, that this is a pivotal year for them?
Yes, it is. Yes. And this is what it seems to me. When Coach Vigen took over, he inherited one of, and if not the best collection of talent and team in the history of the Montana State Bobcats.
And one of the best in the history of the Big Sky Conference, right? You have Troy Anderson leading the way. You're already in the conversation.
Right. But it wasn't just Troy Anderson.
No, 100%.
It's one of the great
Lance
senior
McCutcheon's
classes
in the NFL. Lewis Kidd is in the NFL.
Yep.
Ty Okada's in the NFL. Callahan O'Reilly is in the UFL now. But, multiple pros across the board.
And you go, okay, so the only thing different here is the coach. What do we got? And by the way, you just about couldn't have a starker difference in personality and type and methodology, personality-wise, than from Jeff Choate to Brent Vigen. And what did he do? He took him to a national championship. And you go, hey, that was really good. And then the next year, I think a lot of people, certainly myself, was like, okay, but what are you really as a coach? Because now all those dudes are out the door. And there's a lot of good players here, and it's great to have what you think is a solidified situation at quarterback, although it hasn't been entirely solidified. Going back and forth with Sean Chambers, but you understand what I'm saying. What do we have here? And they were great again, and they made another deep playoff run, and they were outstanding.
They won the Big Sky Conference. They went undefeated in league. They went all the way to the semifinals.
That's right. Then the next year was last year, and so they went to the semifinals. That's great. Then they went 8-4 last year and lost in the first round of the playoff game. And what I'm saying is, even though I wouldn't characterize last year as an unraveling, it has been an incremental step down.
Totally.
Each of the last 3 seasons for Montana State. And when you start at going to a national championship, it's pretty tough not to have a step down at some point. And I would never characterize year 2, a double-digit win season, a run to the semifinals, as anything other than a great success. But then last year, some of it circumstantial, some of it on you, it didn't happen. And now we sit here and we go, okay, we think this team's really good again. We think there's a lot of talent there. It's probably, a lot of within the scope of the Big Sky. It's the Montana schools, right? That's where we're at right now. But what are you actually going to do on the field? And I think this is a pivotal year for the club, and I think it's a pivotal year for Coach Vigen as well. And I think that he really needs to come through. Obviously, the last game of the regular season is going to be
no doubt
huge for them.
Well, this is what I've been thinking about, though, is we're to the point now where the FCS is pretty watered down. I don't think there's any team in the country that could win the national championship that's not in Montana, North Dakota, or South Dakota. That's it. If Idaho won the national championship, I would be utterly shocked. Mm-hmm. And part of that is simply because Idaho is not going to win the outright Big Sky Conference championship because they have to play at Montana State this year. Do you know what I'm saying? If Idaho got home games all the way through, they might be able to get to the national championship. But are they going to beat any of those other 4 teams on a neutral field? Probably not, right? Same with Sac State, same with Villanova, yada, yada, yada. But so much of the FCS playoffs, especially over the last 10 years, has been, when do you play the only other teams in the country that can beat you? This is what befell the 2021 Grizz. That team probably was only going to lose to 3 or 4 teams in the whole country, and one of them happened to be James Madison, and they had to go to their barn, right? It's the same dynamics. That's why you have to get home field all the way throughout the playoffs. Magical run last year by the Grizz. If they're not at home, did they beat Furman? Did they beat North Dakota State?
Right.
I mean, you got to go. You had 3 overtimes in 2 games to be able to get there, and you're talking in front of 2 of the most raucous crowds I have ever seen.
Yeah.
If you think the home field advantage is worth a touchdown, well, Grizz lost both those games then, unless they're at Washington Grizzly Stadium. So you got to get the home field. But that's where the rivalry game comes into so much play. There's so much made of it in this state. But always the team that wins and loses that, how does that vault you into the draw that you get? If there's only 2 or 3 teams that can beat you, and I'm not just saying you have to win it, though. That's the irony. 2021, the Grizz win the rivalry game. That gives them the worst draw.
Yeah.
2022, the Cats win the rivalry game. That gives them the worst draw. They have to go to Brookings in the semifinals.
Yeah.
Grizz had to go to Fargo the round before, so that's a worse draw in totality. But regardless, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Winning and losing the rivalry game is not actually helping you avoid the teams unless you take care of business all the way up to that. That was the Grizz last year. You win the rivalry game to cap a run to get the 2 seed. That's where I think these teams are at now. You have to be able to take care of business before the rivalry and then in the rivalry to ensure home games throughout, because that's the tried and true formula. What was the last time South Dakota State lost to an FCS team? When they had to come to Bozeman in 2021 in the playoffs.
Yeah. And a different South Dakota State team at that time than it
was
was the last couple of years.
It was.
Even though very, very good.
It was. But that's the whole thing, is North Dakota State has won 1 road playoff game in its history. Montana's won 1. Montana State's won 1. South Dakota State's won 2, I think. You don't win on the road in the playoffs, period. You got to get home field throughout the playoffs. That's the only way you're going to go to the national championship game.
I got to ask you a question, and you may have covered this ground. In fact, I mean, you're you, so you have covered this ground. But I haven't heard it, and I'm really interested. But last year, especially down the stretch, there was so much talk about how little Sean Chambers was used.
Yes.
And how he's not close the best athlete on your team, certainly offensively. And when he was used, it seemed just like rinse and repeat, like there wasn't a lot of variety to it. And then you know, especially coming out of the Grizz game, rumblings of dissent and bad. And then I turn around and who's on the staff at Montana State this year? You know, helping out as an extra pair of eyes and I was shocked, absolutely shocked, because I just thought this is like, you know, a burned bridge, and I'm wondering, did we miss something last year? Did something happen in the offseason, or it's just like, hey,
the issue,
just get over it?
The issue was sent out of town. The offensive coordinator's not there anymore. Taylor Housewright, after some of the most outrageous legal troubles we've seen anybody face, they basically parted ways. They wanted to be classy about it, so they didn't fire him, but he basically got deported,
dismissed
to Akron, and then that fell through because they had hired him without knowing about his indiscretions. Then the president found out about his indiscretions. He comes to the table and says, "No way, we're not hiring this guy." So now he's an analyst at Georgia Southern.
I'm gonna say too, if you've got legal troubles and you can't get hired at Akron, you've got big legal troubles.
So anyways, Housewright's removal I think helps also. Chambers and Vegan go way back from the Wyoming days. They have, they've always talked about how they have like a father-son relationship. I also think that Sean Chambers was hurt last year. I think that like down the stretch he was. I mean, certainly when Tommy Malott got hurt against North Dakota State, Sean Chambers came in. You could see how hurt he was. He was not operating at a high level whatsoever.
Yeah, it's such an interesting dance to me as a head coach when you have coordinators who and different head coaches operated very differently in terms of the level of autonomy that you give. And obviously a lot of times head coaches have a particular side of the ball that they came up doing or whatever it might be. But while you want you don't want to undermine your coaches and what they're doing from a football standpoint, but also you have to insist, no, we are going to do it, quote unquote, my way. This is the way we're going to do it. Yeah. And when the rubber meets the road circumstantially, whether it's in-game, prep for game, nope, this is the dude. We're going to do it. You're going to figure it out. And, how those buttons get pushed. It's so fascinating to me.
Is a will you marry me in your future? Or maybe you do it all over again. Hi, I'm Brian Toon with Jewelry Design Center, inviting you to come see the largest selection of Will You Marry Me in the state of Montana. The brightest diamonds of every shape and size, unique settings built to last, and skilled jewelers on site offering free sizing and maintenance for life, because that's how long we want to be your jeweler. Jewelry Design Center in Missoula, on Brooks, across from the Montana Club.
No question. And I think that that's the biggest question mark right now with Brent Vigen. I think that he's proven they can handle high expectations. That's one of the biggest sort of entry points for coaches at either Montana school. Can you handle the high highs when you're winning and the low, the mania that exists in both Missoula and Bozeman and around the state when you win or lose, like how much it's boosted up or how much they tear you down, no matter what, no matter who you're playing, rival or otherwise. Such a huge part of the deal. I think he has proven that he can make tough organizational decisions, like benching Matt McKay and going with Tommy Millott when he's a freshman, like moving on from both coordinators in the same offseason. Some people would say you should have done it a lot earlier. When they both get popped for DUIs within the span of 6 months, maybe you should make a point and do it. But either way, he did move on from both in the same offseason after a playoff year. So I think he's made tough organizational decisions. I think he does do a good job of letting his coaches coach throughout the week. But when you watch him during games, he has a presence, but he is not in on anything. Like when you are melting down like they were in Missoula last year, you got to go either say, hey, guys, figure this out. Or, hey, house right, I'm on the call.
I'm taking this.
We're gonna get back on track here. I'm gonna be the one making the calls.
Yep.
You watch the game.
Yep.
The substitution errors, like these guys are screaming at each other on the sidelines. They're screaming at each other during the game. They're false starting. They're doing all this stuff, and it's like you can't do that kind of stuff. Somebody's got to get involved. So that's to me the next step is when it's going awry, does he have the gusto to be able to step in and say, hey, this is what we got to change.
And again, in the context of an individual game, especially a rivalry game,
no doubt.
it's just so difficult to do. But you do have to find a way to stabilize the ship, and it never happened. It never came close to happening.
No, and that's the recent trend in the rivalry game.
Yeah, it is.
We had these close ones until the last four have been just blowouts.
Yeah.
Blowout for the Cats in 2019, blowout for the Grizz in 2021, blowout for the Cats in 2022, and then a blowout for the Grizz last year.
Yeah. So that's the game. What is it? An outlier? I don't know. It's unique. It genuinely is. It's its own thing in the world. And so you got to kind of accept it as that and prepare for it as such. But yeah, I think what's the biggest unknown for Montana State is that very thing. Like, what does your offense and defense look like now?
Right.
And how is it going to be run? And obviously you got the head coach there, but what level of import? And of course that happens it happens at the hire. Like, you make your money buying a house or, on a house at purchase.
Sure. Right.
You decide what offensive you're going to run at the hire of the offensive coordinator.
Correct.
Because okay, this is what this guy does. And all the other stuff has to check out too, but that's the deal.
And that's why they promoted it internally.
Right.
I don't think it's going to look any different. I think they're going to run – there might be a little bit of nuanced changes, but I think it's going to largely look the same.
Well, they brought Sean Chambers in, so there might be a little more running. I don't know. QB running, Tommy Moore.
I think that's going to be the step, though, where the Cats make a step forward. I've thought this forever. I think that the way that Tommy Millott is wired as a person caters to him needing to be the guy from start to finish in a game because he's such an analytical guy, but he's also so high strung. So if he's looking over his shoulder, when's the next guy coming in, he's going to always try to do too much.
Yeah.
When he gets to diagnose the whole situation and just, let his computer mind work. His best games have been when he played for the duration. In the playoffs when he was a freshman, and then last year against North Dakota State. That looked great.
Yep.
Throwing the ball and running the ball against North Dakota State. I think not looking over his shoulder is going to actually help. The question is, though, how does he stay healthy?
Do we have time? Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Tuesdays with Tootell.
Yeah.
Proudly presented by Up Top Clothing. You shop online right now, get a 15% discount by using Skyline15. TeamUpTop.com. Lifestyle gear, awesome Grizz and Bobcat and all the other colleges Montana gear as well. Shop online, teamuptop.com. Use Skyline15 at checkout. Up Top Clothing reminding you to take a step back and enjoy the moment. All right, what's your question?
Okay, I want to talk about the non-conference schedule, generally speaking, but we'll focus in on Montana State.
Yes.
The Cats play, among others, Maine and Mercyhurst. The Grizzlies play Western Carolina and Morehead State, among others. Why should anyone? What is the draw for you? What? Not the draw so much, but like what is there to be taken out of non-conference football at the FCS level in matchups like these?
Well, it's an interesting question. I actually think that I don't know how this started, but I think that there's like this overblown narrative that the Grizz have a super easy non-conference schedule. Missouri State was picked to finish 7th in the Missouri Valley Football Conference. That's not last. It's close to last, but it's not last. But they're in the Missouri Valley Football Conference. Okay? So you're going to be a 3-touchdown favorite at home under the lights, but it's not like you're going to be a 45-point favorite like the Cats are going to be against Mercyhurst. I don't even know what the line's going to be.
Right.
The Cats are going to be expected to win that game 63-7 to even cover the spread.
The name is Mercy in the name.
so that game is a throwaway game. Morehead State's a throwaway game, right? Okay, so you throw away Mercyhurst for the Cats.
So I don't want to throw them away, though. That's my point. Is like
but listen, though, the Grizz, they have this perception that they have this really easy non-conference schedule. North Dakota's preseason number 22. They were a playoff team last year. The Grizz got to go there. That's a tough place to play. It's not the Fargo Dome. It's not, Dana Dykhouse Stadium in Brookings. It's not Bobcat Stadium, but it's better than pretty much everywhere else you're going to play in the FCS. There's going to be 12,000 people there. That's a tough place to play.
The Cats play at New Mexico, and then Utah Tech, who used to be Southern Utah?
Dixie State.
Or Dixie State, that's right.
Yeah.
But and that's at least a regionally, like, here, I guess I didn't include them. People know about Utah Tech,
Western Carolina is picked to finish second in the SoCon. They're the number 19 team in the country. Cole Gonzalez might be the best quarterback in America. He's certainly the best pro prospect of any FCS quarterback in America. So I don't think the Grizz non-conference is as easy as people want to make it out to be. The question is what, though? What do you gain for this? What do you glean from it?
Yeah, I guess.
I try to, I'm basically talking myself in a circle right now. I think that every team in the Big Sky Conference and all the top teams in the Missouri Valley Conference would beat all of the rest of the FCS teams, period.
Yeah.
So there is no point to it, really, as far as gauging stuff. Here's a good one for you.
Yeah.
Portland State's got the toughest schedule in the Big Sky Conference. I think Barney's going to be lucky to win 3 games this year.
Yeah.
Yet, Portland State plays on the road at Chattanooga, the preseason number 9 team in the country, the team that's the preseason favorite to win the SoCon over Furman and Western Carolina. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of the 3 wins that Portland State gets is on the road at Chattanooga. If that happens, it will prove my point.
Yeah.
Because Portland State's probably going to finich 9th or 10th in the Big Sky this year, and they might beat the SoCon champ. If that happens, my point will be thoroughly proven.
And I did, and maybe mistakenly, sort of frame that in sort of a football sense of what do we take out of it. But I'll answer my own question in a different kind of way. I love a team like a Western Carolina or Morehead State because and I think I'm in the vast majority of people listening to this right now, know nothing about these schools' football programs, even where they are. I mean, Morehead State is in Kentucky. Obviously, Western Carolina is in Western North Carolina.
Sure.
But to have teams come in from an entirely different part of the country, a different part of the planet,
yes,
and have to see the style of football they play, to have the and for the Grizz or Cats to visit those places and be on the road in those places, I think is one of the great and interesting things about college sports in general, sports at large, but especially college sports, because it is so tied to the geography of place.
Sure.
And I think it's fun and exciting, and whether the football matches it is a coin toss, and in the non-conference often it isn't, although there's exceptions to your point. But I always have sort of loved that part of it. Now, when Oklahoma Panhandle State shows up,
that's right.
You got to do better than that. Like you have to have something football-wise to offer just the fans, man. Like you have to. So that kind of thing shouldn't happen. But at the same time, what is it? The shoes on the other foot. Like when Montana or Montana State want to get a payday at Texas Tech.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead and mercy
I mean, it's never gonna change as long as people keep buying tickets.
That's right.
So when Oklahoma Panhandle State sells out, that's why they schedule Oklahoma Panhandle State, because they're trying to make a gate. They want a guaranteed win in which they're going to make $2 million or whatever the Grizz or the Cats make at the gate.
Yeah, well, that's
It's business.
It's necessary business in a certain sense. But I think when I saw the non-conference schedule for both these schools, overall, I actually thought it was a better non-conference schedule than a lot of what I've seen the past 3-4 years taken in total. And I'm obviously excited for football season, but also sort of interested in some of the September matchups and obviously August as well that are coming at us.
Tuesdays.
Our family on our mom's side has a deep Montana history, especially stemming from Butte and Helena. And we are so proud. One of the things we are most proud of is to call ourselves Montanans. At Up Top Clothing, they have Montana-made and Montana-branded clothing for both men and women. Their Montana Till I Die collection is one of my favorite collections anywhere in the clothing world. And you can shop online and get the Montana Till I Die collection and all the other great gear that Up Top Clothing makes delivered right to your doorstep. Visit teamuptop.com. And if you use the promo code Skyline15, you're going to get a discount on all your online ordering. Teamuptop.com, Up Top Clothing, reminding you to take a step back and enjoy them.
Tuesdays with Tootell, Big Sky Breakdown, Skyline Sports YouTube channel, proudly presented in part by Jewelry Design Center. No matter what you can imagine, no matter what you want out of your jewelry design, they can do it for you. Unbelievable creativity, any sort of custom designs. They have a full team of artisans that are so creative and so such solid craftsmanship. Go check out Jewelry Design Center across from the Montana Club, 2501 Brook Street. Jewelry Design Center, your jeweler for life. All right, last thing. We wanted to get you reacclimated with the Big Sky Conference.
Yeah.
And we'll do this throughout the
It's going to take more
next,
than one
the
session.
next couple of weeks, but let's just do one team. Give me one team that you want to know about or that you have thoughts about and you want to know my thoughts about.
No, a team that has historically been very good, and that at this moment in time I know so very little about, and just would love to know what their state is Weber State.
Good one.
I mean, we know that they had been one of the stalwarts, league winners, and like deep runs, and one of the absolute best for multiple years, not just high watermark stuff.
Yeah, they made the playoffs 6 out of 7 years under Jay Hill, won 4 straight Big Sky titles.
And when Jay Hill is obviously the tie that binds in that.
No question.
Where are we at now at Weber State?
It's a great question. Weber State going into year 2 under Mickey Mental, and Northern Arizona going into year 1 under Brian Wright are the two biggest mysteries in the league to me. I think everybody in the league has a consensus belief that Montana and Montana State are the two best teams. Then UC Davis, Idaho, Sac State, in some order, are the next 3 primary playoff contenders. I think everybody in the league sort of has a consensus belief that Cal Poly and Northern Colorado are the 2 worst teams. Idaho State's probably better than them, but not quite as good as everybody else. Portland State, who knows, but tough schedule, we'll see. NAU and Weber.
You're the only person I could ask about specifically one school, and you named the 12 others before you got to me.
But Weber, though, went 7-5 last year. But I think that so much of their opinion of their season, or I guess they went 7-4, 6-5. Regardless, so much of the opinion of their season was colored by their conference opener when they got absolutely shellacked by Montana State. I could never remember a time ever in which Weber State lost on their home field 40-0 in a conference game to anybody.
Yeah.
No matter if it's the Grizz, the Cats, or otherwise. But then they actually rallied down the stretch. They ended up going with this young kid, Richie Munoz, at quarterback, and they won 3 in a row down the stretch, and to get to a winning league record. So they were just fine, but they were nowhere close to what they were. But to me, the biggest question about Weber State is this. It's twofold. First of all, Jay Hill is unquestionably the greatest coach in Weber State history. It's not close. Weber State only made the playoffs twice ever before Jay Hill got there. They made it 6 out of 7 years under Coach Hill.
Yeah.
Won the Big Sky Conference 4 times. He himself is such an outstanding coach.
Yeah.
He also was such a good fit at Weber State. So much is made of the fit at the Montana schools. How much do you know about Montana? I also think it's very important in Utah.
Yeah.
Mickey Mental is the first guy that I can ever remember that's a head coach of a football program in the state of Utah that is nowhere close to being from there or having anything to do with all of the varying factors that Utah is about. Like, Weber State only had 3 coaches in like 40 years. Arslanian, and then Ron McBride was there forever. Where did Ron McBride coach before that? Utah. Who played for Ron McBride at Utah? Jay Hill. This pipeline keeps going. The Kyle Whittingham, Ron McBride pipeline at Utah and BYU. It's just this sort of intermixing, and Mickey Mental has nothing to do with that. He was at Weber for 1 year. He was the offensive coordinator under Coach Hill. He did have D2 head coaching experience. That's why they promoted him internally, but he's not from Utah. He has no ties in Utah. He has no ties to any of those other schools in Utah. His coaching staff is nowhere close to what all these other coaching staffs look like, where there's such this fraternal thing. Oh, you used to coach for this guy at Utah State? Great, come on over here. BYU, whatever. There's really no continuity with the state. Mm-hmm. The other part is that Weber, regardless if it was Jay Hill or Ron McBride before him or whoever else, has been built on very similar pillars. Super tough. You're always going to be good on the lines. You're going to be good on defense. Figure out a way to kind of ham and egg it on offense. They were really good on offense in 09 and in 08 and 09, but that was sort of an outlier compared to basically the rest of their history. So much of that's because of what you can get out of Utah, right? You're going to get the big offensive linemen. You're going to get the LDS kids that are coming back from missions. You have all the Islander people, all the Polynesian people that live in Utah. They have a great pipeline there. If Mickey Mental, who's an offensive guy, wants to make this an offensive program, how does that work? That's the second biggest question for me. You've had the defensive identity for a decade under Jay Hill and for 40 years before that. How do you build an offensive-minded team in Ogden, Utah? Mm-hmm. Like, think about the team, University of Utah. What do you think of first? Fast, super physical defense, right? Mm-hmm. BYU, what do you think of? Back in the day, you thought of offense, but like mostly you think they all have sort of similar identities. So if you're just trying to build like Eastern Washington Light in Ogden, how's that going to work?
Well, it worked great at the University of Montana when they tried it.
Well, it did work great when they did it in the 80s and the 90s. It didn't work so great when they tried it in the modern era.
In 2014, yeah.
Yeah, in the 2015 to 2017 days, not so good for the University of Montana.
Yeah, well, it's, I think that the nature of college football, and I don't like this about the state of college football right now. And I'm actually a little bit more of an optimist than a lot of people in the state of college athletics and football in particular. But one of the things that I don't like is it was always some sort of mystery of like, what do we got? Who are the new guys coming in and whatever. But the percentage level of turnover, players and coaches at the college level, it can have a certain leveling effect in some senses, but I think for fans, it's a little off-centering, where we want to root for this team and we live and die with this team because it's the school and we went to this school or we live in this town or whatever it might be. But when guys walk out and we've got no idea who they are or where, you can read obviously in the pamphlet like where they came from, but there's no history with a lot of the players that are going to walk out on August 24th for Montana State and on August 31st for the Grizzlies. And this is all schools across the board. And you're going to root for them because they're in the uniform that you root for. But to have the ties to the individuals year over year and guys who matriculate through and then graduate and they're here for 5 years at these schools is becoming rarer and rarer. And that is a lot of what college athletics has been. And one of the great things and the buy-in and the identifiers for people, and I think a lot of kids that went to schools for those periods of times, they're not from Knoxville, but they went to play at the University of Tennessee. And guess what? They have a history of their life that's identifiable in that period that was, special to them, and that they were a part of obviously a team, but also a community in some big sense. And I think a lot of that is going by the wayside, and I understand the reasons for it, and I think a lot of the reasons for it are valid, but I think this is a byproduct, a negative byproduct of where we're at right now.
Meeting her stopped your world. The ring you give her should stop her heart.
Tina, will you marry me?
Not again! Don't worry, I'm gonna fix this, because we want to be your jeweler on our beautiful diamond! Clear! Come back to me, Tina! Are you okay?
you just sparked such a thought for me for Weber too, though, because more than any other school that's sort of risen up to challenge the powers that be in the Big Sky, and make no mistake, Weber legitimately straight up replaced the Grizz and the Cats for a moment in time in the Big Sky Conference. Mm-hmm. Eastern Washington did too, but when you think of Eastern Washington, what do you think of? Cooper Kupp and Kendrick Bourne and Vernon Adams
on earth.
But you think of all these players.
Yeah.
Like, how'd they do it? Well, they had a better quarterback than everybody else. They had the best receiver in the history of college football. Like, how'd they do it?
Yeah.
When you think of Weber, what do you think of? Jay Hill, that's it.
Right.
Name me a great Weber player.
Well, Rashid Shaheed and Jonah
Williams and Teron Johnson, who's playing for the Bills.
There's some dudes. But
no, they had NFL dudes for sure. But that's like not what sells tickets.
No,
and you wonder if that impact, because that's been their whole thing, right? Eastern and Weber are the two programs where, the whole theory of build it and they will come. You build a perennial winner, your attendance is going to go through the roof. Mm-hmm. It never happened.
Yeah.
Weber State's never had more than 10,000 tickets sold, even when they were hosting semifinal playoff games. The stadium's still half empty. Yeah. Eastern, sometimes they're getting 8 to 10 or whatever, especially if Montana's in town. But they didn't have enough they didn't have enough momentum to do their big stadium expansion that they've always talked about. So if you've reached that height and you still can't raise money and you still can't sell tickets, then what is the actual
ceiling
and point?
Yeah, right.
Unfortunately, right? If it's not impacting your enrollment in any measurable way, and you're not making more money off of it, and you're not getting more donations, you're not building bigger facilities, then what's the point?
Right.
It's an interesting deal. We'll see what happens with Weber State, but I have no beat on them whatsoever. Andrew's higher on them than I am. He thinks that they could be decent to good. They're preseason number 22 in the recent stats poll. So is that based on reputation, or is that based on what they actually have coming? The other thing is that you want to know how much talent Jay Hill is able to recruit there. There's this whole moving target in terms of all the guys that left their respective teams. Some guys went big time, like Sebastian Valdez from Montana State went to Washington or whatever. So many other guys that thought they were going to go FBS, they didn't go anywhere. They went to comparable, if not lower level, FCS or D2 programs. All the guys that transferred from Weber after Jay Hill left 2 years ago went up. They all went big.
Yeah.
So you see the level of talent. Do they still have that level of talent? Can Mickey Mental and his staff bring in that level of talent? Remains to be seen. Tuesdays with Tootell here on the Big Sky Breakdown. Long session. Thanks for doing it, man.
Yeah, this was enjoyable. Thank you.
Guess what? We'll be back next Tuesday. We put it in the name for you.
Yeah. Like Mercyhurst.
Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks to our great sponsors. And thanks to all you for listening. SkylineSportsMT.com. Skyline Sports every day, every season.